Hello everyone, welcome back to the Keep Productive YouTube channel. It is Francesco here, and in today's feature we're getting the pleasure of sitting down with Chris Dancy. Now Chris is the most connected human in the world, and if you don't believe me, you can Google it and his name will pop up. Chris has a famous history of being very, very connected with wearables and tracking everything. In the last 10 years, he's tracked his entire life. And if you don't believe me, this video we dive into his Airtable account. His Airtable is the most wild Airtable I've ever seen. My brain was like fried during this feature. I actually got off the phone, I went to Becca and went, I'm amazed at how well he's connected up his Airtable. So maybe this will give you a few ideas how you can connect up your Airtable, or just generally inspire you about how Chris uses and approaches productivity, because I think it's definitely worth it. Now we actually get the opportunity to dive into his Airtable, but also we have a podcast coming out which will be available here on YouTube and on the podcast. So please make sure to subscribe to both of them, because you'll be amazed. You'll actually thoroughly love it and really enjoy that sort of topic and me and him chatting. So guys, without further ado, me and Chris chatting about his amazing Airtable account. And I'm joined by Chris Dancy. We've just come off a really insightful call, not just for me and learning about how I should approach the world of the online courses and things like that, but also for Chris's workflow and the application. So it's good to have you back, Chris, and I'm excited to dive into your Airtable. So how long have you been using Airtable now?
Oh my gosh, just a little bit more than a year. So I first started out, it's, a lot of people know, basically putting all my information into a Google Calendar. So I created these kind of life areas, and then they kind of rolled up with a lot of automation. I was probably one of Wade Foster's earliest professional customers who wasn't a business. And I was just pumping in so much data. I used to break different parts of Zapier in my life. After that, I kind of moved on because, once you've got the productivity piece of it down, which is like the big things for productivity or productivity time management, and one of the challenges is like organizing all this information across domains. You kind of get to the next stage once you master that in your life, and that's where you really think about how to integrate health with all of that. And the challenges there is health can just be disparate. Do you even consider your entertainment? What do you do when all this tech is basically becoming invisible? And I started then mapping all of these devices down to a single kind of vision for how I interacted with the world. And that took me to what is known as gyroscope. And gyroscope is a really great way of kind of seeing your day and your life as it relates to your productivity and health combined. I call it an aggregator service. But what I did about a year ago was I was thinking about some of the challenges I was having around my stack really was missing this value. So I had the productivity in the bag, I had the healthcare stuff in the bag, but I realized it really wasn't focusing on the things I valued, the legacy type things, the mortality, what is it that you spend your time valuing and doing? So I started thinking to myself, how would I build a system? So what I did was I created a mind map, a very early one of just how I would orchestrate some of the day-to-day relationships, whether it be my current customers, whether it be consulting, speaking, or media, and then going on from there. So what I did, and what I'm going to show you is this overview of kind of my life areas. So the first one that's in the Airtable we're going to look at is something I call the asset tables. So these are 3 tables that kind of contain all the bits and pieces of my life as they exist. There's an entity table, which represents kind of everyone who's important, as or a system that's legally recognized, like a business. A health table, which is all of my health stats. An assets table for everything you buy that's worth something, and then bank accounts. After that, I kind of have a section of tables called the liabilities tables, and these are people I owe money to. These are systems like credit cards and bills that all roll up that have a relationship to entities, but they live on their own. From there, I have the revenue generating section, and that has a bridge between contacts and the entity side. So basically, interacting with Francesco, he's a contact. And then from there, I've got the services that I deliver to people, the engagements that I deliver, the reference engine that powers that. Under that, I built a legal and record keeping subsystem. So basically, transactions from the bank, forms from the government, from a client, statements that need to be followed up on that I need to save, and then the integration out to my bookkeeping service, which is also digital. And then sitting next to all of that is the planning tables. And the planning tables kind of underpin everything, so my values are kind of always kept in track. So for example, a task doesn't get created unless it's part of that year's projects and goals. A charge doesn't get spent unless it maps to something we've already dictated for the year. All of these tables are then motivated or tickled by what I call the action tables. So I only have two real actions in my life. One is a task, I've got something to do, and one is an interaction, I'm doing something. Not every interaction is a task, not every task is an interaction. But if I talk to someone on the phone, that might be an interaction on a task. If I talk to someone in an email, that might be an interaction for a customer. If I send an email to a business, that's an interaction for a vendor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So everything pins up. And this is where, when I started trying to redesign a massive system that kept all of this together, I had to think really carefully about what interacts with what and how. So the first thing is I could do all this in a browser, but for me, I don't think like a browser because I end up with a bunch of tabs that make me crazy. So I use something called Biscuit. Really small. I think the guy's one person shop, might be a lady, I'm not sure. But it's kind of like Station or any of these other kind of apps that kind of aggregate a bunch of web apps together. And what I did was I created a sidebar with the types of things I wanted to keep track of. So the very first section of my Biscuit is my health section. And that kind of shows me where I'm at today. You can see I'm 50.89717198, 2000. I can't even count that fast. But it kind of shows me my health, for that moment in time as it looks over the past 2 weeks. So you can see my health score is just diving. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been getting a lot less sleep than I normally do, especially last night, because I'm going out of town for 2 months at the end of next week. But it helps me kind of just understand overall how my body's doing in real time. Underneath that, I keep my productivity stack. And these are just applications that plug in here that then feed the information back into the Airtable. The productivity stack just allows me to kind of keep track of the things that I'm interacting with and how I'm interacting with them. This is an application called Rescue Time. But Airtable really starts for me when I think about the tasks. So you'll see across the top all of these tabs, and we can go through them one at a time. That usually overwhelms people. That's why I keep them in these side sections. So tasks are really simple, like anything else, like Notion and all these other tools. It can be displayed a bunch of different ways. I always have a global view, which is like everything in the best default delineation I can. So like the column orders they should be in, the views they should have, etc. So if I just come into one of these very quick right here, I can see here the task key, and the keys are auto-generated from information that I pull out of the task. So the due date for the task, I don't do times with tasks. That's too stressful. That's why I have a calendar. Calendars have times, tasks have dates. A short description, a long description, a priority. Again, I use a lot of emojis and I use a lot of visualization. So to me, if I don't want to actually see the words, I use the colors to see them. Statuses, and then I have an operational focus. So for me, everything has to go into a focus. No matter if it's an interaction or a task, it doesn't really matter. So it means that these are the types of things that should be done in these days. This also helps me when I'm planning if I need to move a bunch of things all at once. From there, if there's an attachment that goes on that particular task, and then if it's tied to any sort of engagement, we'll talk about engagements in a minute, but then all the interactions. So if I send an email to someone, if I have a scheduled thing, what vendor, what asset, what customer, is this linked to a health stat? Is this linked to our project? Is this linked to a life area? So life areas are your ultimate values, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Should I take a breather or keep plowing?
Keep plowing.
Okay. So this is the priority view. This is really important to me because I try to only have one high priority item per day that has to get done. But I also like simple things like task by focus area. And focus area, basically it's just color coded. So basically I know if it's health, it's a certain color. If it's a relationship, it's a certain color. It's just easy for me to see that. So that's tasks. After task, a lot of what I do, because we live in, unfortunately, somewhat of an analog world, are forms and documents. So forms and documents are anything to do that underpins something important in my life. And they can have crazy amounts of metadata with them just in the document. But they also have different document types. So it's an accounting document, it's a bill, it's something from the IRS, it's a report, it's an event because I do a lot of events, it's a media asset, etc. So documents are always underpinned to an entity, and then again, all the other pieces. But what is an entity, right? So that's kind of the big thing. Like, who is this entity we keep talking about? So all of these systems interact with entities. So I'm an entity, my business is an entity, my partner is an entity, he's the FA. My dog, my new puppy, and my cat are all entities. And these entities have things linked to them like credit cards and assets. So if I wanted to see my dog's entity, I can see his collar, any bills the dog generates, whether it be for pet food or his annual subscription service, all of his health records. I just realized I've never shown anyone this stuff, so I'm sorry about this. He
That's
also,
amazing.
yeah, if he goes in and out of the yard, because it comes in by email, those interactions are automatically logged as an interaction with the dog. So the dog's daily stats, health routines are automatically logged in here. So entities are a great place to understand that everything starts there and moves down from there. Interaction. Oh, and then of course, I've got other things over here under organizational. So my Notion inbox, which I've just plugged in my task list. But then interactions are like how I deal with people. So a lot of times things get automatically logged because they come in through an email, and there's a Zap set up to move it into the system right away. If it's starred or someone that's been starred before. Interactions are pretty straightforward. I like to keep it in calendar view because, again, if I want to be able to search real quick and see all the interactions with someone, I can just come over here and type in a name, and all of a sudden it's going to pull up like all the Francesco or Fran type interactions. But the form views, again, are very much like all the other form views. They're centered around the interaction. If it's linked to a particular service that I'm delivering, so in this case, it's doing a workshop called Life After Apps, or linked to a task, etc. So interactions are kind of there. Real quick jump into email, because that's where you have to manage a lot of this stuff and where I kind of just check in, see if there's anything. A lot of it's handled through automation. Communications in Notion. I use a lot of Notion things for like text-based communications. So for example, people who want to book time with me, I don't just send them a link to my scheduling, a Calendarly, because I think that seems impersonal. So what I do is I send them these 3 options. So, hey, you can click on the link, or you can pick 2 times and I'll make one work, or just call me and we'll schedule something. So the idea is I need to copy and paste stuff out of Notion quickly. So I just keep kind of these calendaring shortcuts. I thought about moving into paste, but I think there's something important about having to customize the text.
Yeah.
Zoom and Calendar is basically how I keep track of people who want to interact with me digitally. Engagements is super, super interesting because engagements are how I manage my income and my time when I'm not spending time with my spouse and my health. So engagements really fall in 3 classes. I do events where I speak, sometimes can do workshops. I do media where I interact with the press all over the world. But it could be a video shoot, could be a magazine or something. And I do consultations where organizations, colleges, governments hire me to come in and help them with their digital strategy, and or just like how do they make sense of a lot of data. My engagements are broken down, like if we look at just the event and the things that I'm prospecting, people who've reached out to me, things that are business development, those are things that I've actually had some contact with these people and they're looking at, getting back to me. They have an invoice, I'm sorry, not an invoice, a proposal, and then deliver. So these are people that current customers that I need to go out and deliver. So these are all my events over the next, I don't know how many months, into February 2020. I don't put too much in here because it can overwhelm me very quickly, but I can see very quickly it's an event. This is the date I need to be there. If I know what time I need to be on stage, that's in here. Who's the customer? What do they do? Where are they at? What do they want me to do for them? When's the next task for this customer? Because a lot of times they'll need me to do things coming up to that event. What are the interactions with that customer? What services are they paying for? How much time do they need me being on stage, etc.? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think there you've so you're using the rows, right? You're creating
Yes.
groups per one.
Yeah. So it's weird. Records in Airtable are rows.
Yeah.
So this isn't one big record. Each one of these rows is a record.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, that makes total sense. And the thing is, you've got you've consolidated all this information, and then you use Biscuit to be able to bring it all together on that side panel, right?
Exactly. So I use Biscuit to organize the side panel to quick shortcuts to the types of things I do. So for example, if I just wanted something much easier to see, I could just go to events upcoming and I get this. There's my keep productive and the other events that I'm doing.
Okay, that makes,
And
yeah, that's a lot more visual. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a card view. It's very quick, and it's the same data. It's just like, if I said to myself, this is one of the things I love about Notion is you can make anything look like anything. If I just wanted to see the same information on a calendar.
Yeah.
All right.
And
So
how long did it take you to create all of those different viewing options?
I'm kind of really particular about views, so it probably took me maybe a month or so, really thinking about the delivery state. Because if I'm on mobile, the view has to be a certain way. If I want to focus on a client, I'd come up here and go to tasks. Let's just say I've got a task. I wouldn't look in the event. I'd want to come down here and say, what's my task view for a client via mobile? Because maybe I'm on my phone and I've got something due today.
Oh,
Does
wow.
that make sense?
Yeah, so you've drilled it down to having a mobile version and a web version as well. That's pretty.
Yeah, I really needed to kind of have because a lot of times you can have one version, but then it doesn't really work in the other setting.
Yeah.
That's how I did that. I also keep like a customer care timeline. So where's someone at? Do I need to like go out and promote their stuff on social media? All this stuff, to travel. And then of course, all my billing and invoicing is in here, right? So I've
Yeah.
got like $35,000 worth of stuff coming up. Now I want to see how that's going to look. I come over to these block sections and I go into invoicing and contracting. And think of blocks as little programmatic tools or dashboards. So basically blocks pull data out of the Airtable and turn them into something. So my invoicing comes in through blocks. But if I just wanted to say, okay, let's forget invoicing. Let me just see my event dashboard. This shows me what I've got coming up, where in the world, which countries I'm going to be in. Because a lot of times I need to automate messaging to contacts in those countries to say I'm going to be close. Because you know how often we all go someplace and someone says, why didn't you call me? Well, I have a system for that. So if you don't reach out to me, that's kind of your thing. And then app stack. We talked about this in our podcast. So my app stack is just the different areas, my health stack, my productivity stack, my spirituality stack, my travel stack. And then, I can look at this from a primary focus stack, which is a little bit different than the kind of app stack. So just for notes, just for applications that aggregate, just for applications to do calendaring. I also have services that I deliver. So I do one of kind of a bunch of different services, whether it be keynote speaking, workshops, or consulting, or expo. So I keep all those in here. This is also published to my website. So if someone goes to my website and says they want to buy one of these services, they click on a button, they get a quote depending on where they're at, how many people are in their audience, and then they can peruse this kind of thing. So it works out super, super well, and becomes easy for me to have a single place because then the actual content is linked to here as well.
Yeah.
And then of course, like we all have bills to pay. So this is my bill calendar. It shows me all the things I've got coming up by auto pay. So if it's green, I don't have to worry about it. It's going to go on a credit card or it's going to be automatically paid. I can just ignore it. If it's red, I have to actually do something. That's the whole place where I exert some control. Blue is iTunes automatic pay, which is different than card automatic pay. And purple is some other form of automation. So I look for kind of the non-greens in my bill pay cycle. I also, like, if you're like me, you also have a big problem with things that come due and you forgot and they automatically get paid and now you're locked into another year. So anything that's on a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, semi-annual, multi-annual, all get different colors. So if it's blue, it's a monthly. If it's red, it's yearly. Usually the reds are going to be big ticket items, if that makes sense. So I know right away, hey, this is coming due right now. I can jump into that item and see very quickly, how much is it going to be due when it comes due? How much am I being paying a month if I'm paying monthly? How frequent? This is the frequency engine. Is it set to auto pay? Who is it tied to? Is it tied to an asset? So this Apple iPad Pro, Apple Care is tied to this iPad Pro. And if I go to the iPad Pro, of course, I've got all the information about the purchase of the iPad Pro, the receipt, etc. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Chris, my mind right now is like, it's like, I keep saying it, but you've literally thought of everything. And I quite like the way you do that's one thing I'm going to take away there is the way that you do the financing side of stuff. I like that it's in the calendar. I like that it's recurring. It's a shame that Notion doesn't have recurring, but I'm going to take that away at least.
It's hard. None of the big companies are doing recurring right now, and I'm not sure if it's just hard for them or
Mm.
what's going on. But I don't know. Another view I really like is upcoming by type.
Yeah.
I want to see what bills are coming up. So these are bills for September,
Mm.
2019 September, and these are loan, credit cards, bills, things, bill extras, things I could get rid of if I had to like slim down my life. Bill housing, things I have to pay. Can I cover this at McDonald's? Is how I always look at this. Um, and then all those other things. So, to me, the finances is super important. But then because I'm a business, I've got bookkeeping to worry about. So all the statements from these different companies roll up and get downloaded and attached. So, I've got all the statements for each account at my fingertips. A lot of times your accountant wants those. I make sure I have a print copy and a digital copy of those. But in addition to just the statements, I've also got like the transactions. So I've got about almost 10 years worth of different transaction registers, all tying back, and every single thing that goes through my life automatically gets tagged with a receipt, what category it's in, what vendor did I buy it from. It's much easier to keep track of returns and warranties, because I also set reminders for warranties, etc. In here. So to me, I'm most proud of my transaction engine, because I think the transaction engine, of course, then rolls up to expenses and bills,
Yeah.
is really, really kind of cool. And then that kind of just maps back to the link out to my bookkeeping service up in Canada, company called Bench, no plug, because I'm not real happy with them. And I can come in here and I can see my operational expenses at any time. All of that then kind of, and then of course, credit cards. We all need to know what credit cards do we have, what's the percentage on them, what's the credit limit, all that other good stuff. And then all of that kind of sits on top of more assets. So assets are just broken down into the major assets, equipment type assets, and then home maps. So what's in each room? What are the serial numbers on them? When did we buy them? Or what are the categories? And then everything has a sticker on it like this. And then I can just scan it with my phone and get the information from anything in the house to understand how it's interacting with me in the world to see if it's creating any value. Yeah,
I'm
that's
speechless.
that's the Airtable.
You said like that's the Airtable, like that's just something. Oh my god! So Biscuit brings it together, and
I love Biscuit because a lot of people think like Biscuit and they have like a bunch of tabs, but tabs you can't organize. So I like the fact I can come in here and create these little app sections and put links to my favorite apps and or programs, and they're just available to me right then and there. So if I need a form, I could launch Airtable, get to the form tab and do a search, or I can just click on this and go right into the forms. I got out because I was showing you stuff.
that's incredible. I think people are going to take away at least a few of the things. Obviously, some of the stuff like you've done there might take a bit more time to be able to map out, and especially the block side of it will take a little bit of time. But I think people will be able to take a few little lessons for their own system.
And what's really great is when you build something like this, you can come in here and just type in, something like Microsoft.
Yeah.
And it searches through your entire life, phone calls, documents, everything. It just returns it to you. How many times does your dog interact with Microsoft Office? I can tell you. But, yeah, the idea isn't like a really strange flex as much as it seems like on. The idea is if you care about your digital kind of hygiene as much as you want to care about it, you really need to go back to thinking very carefully, and it's going to search through all those records, about how your life maps together.
Yeah.
Even a very high level. And like I said, this all started with a mind map that I had created that to me just helped me understand these are my accounts, right? These are the people I pay. These are the vendors I deal with. These are the things I own, right? These are how I interact with those people. And it evolves slowly over time. You don't have to like dig in so far. I sometimes joke with people. I always say, we've all got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we spend a lot of time, I think, in life like up here at the top, on Instagram and stuff, and we never really think about like all the applications that live below that make your life. Like what powers you, from a security, from a nutrition, from a love and understanding, from a a future self view. And these are things that are super important, because if you just spend all your time measuring, how well you're doing and how productive you are, you'll kind of miss the other side of it, which is the qualitative side. How are you how effective are you at doing the things you care about? Because I'll say this: the one thing we all have to do is die. Everything else is a choice. So make sure you can have a good death.
Yeah, you enjoy everything to that point. Yeah. Chris, I think that was amazing for enough people to go away and be able to apply stuff to their Airtable, but also look at that sort of big system and even look at the sort of mind map that you talked about at the start. I asked this before, but obviously we did the podcast. Where can people find you and how can they get in touch?
Yeah, you just my name. I give good search. You can just Google Chris Dancy or Most Connected. I come right up also for that. Been kind of like overly connected, managing my life for 10 years. And the other thing is like just my website. My email is on my website. My phone number is on my website. If you're feeling lonely or sad or depressed, or you're unemployed or you're having problems, please. I'm not someone on the internet showing off my technology. I really care about people. I'm the most mindful cyborg I think there is, and I do anything in my power to help anyone. So don't be afraid if you're struggling right now for any reason, productivity or not. I'm here to help.
Amazing. This isn't the last time Chris is going to be on, guys. We're going to have him back on, I think, to talk about various different topics in the productivity space and outside of it, health and wellness. So thanks, Chris, and definitely chat soon.
Thank you so much, Francisco. Be well.